All right, what's going on, guys? So I'm just going to wait a minute until people start joining. Doing a quick live. Hello, hello. All right. Yeah, this is not pre-recorded. I'm doing this live right now. It is the 21st, 7:14 p.m., a little bit later than I would have wanted. My apologies. I'm getting set up. You can see behind me there's like a new background, and I've had this room, but I'm just trying to work it out so that I could use it as a dedicated live room. So going to check some things to make sure that I am, in fact, good to go. I do see some activity in the chat. Thank you, everybody, for speaking. You guys can hear me, right? Can I get a yes? Just so I am certain this is good. All right. Nice, nice. Okay, so give me a second. I just want to make sure that it looks the way I am thinking it looks online. I'm going to try to do some more lives going forward. I know I haven't done a live in a very long time. My apologies, but it's just a different beast of an animal. So that's why it's a little bit, just a little bit difficult. So I'm going to try to do more of it because I want to be able to interact better. But I'm getting an error. Give me 1 second, guys. Let me just try to fix something. So this is currently in a certain resolution, so I'm getting an error. Give me a second. Okay. I'm gonna cut the beginning part out. You could do that after you go live, so that the viewer experience can be a little bit better for those that watch it after the fact. So I'm also getting a little bit of a latency issue. Let me try to see if I can fix something. Hello, hello, everybody. Yes. So from Central Kentucky, from Montana. So a lot of people from all over the place. Yeah, so there's a lot of people. Ron is out, Vivek. A lot of people are out now. I know that the election stuff following Iowa and just all of this, backing Trump, dropping out, and all that is going on. It's at the forefront. I can speak a little bit about that, but I have a topic today that I want to talk about because it's very relevant, okay? And I'm going to go through some passages in the Bible. For some people, it's woohoo. For other people, it's, oh, man, not one of those, because people like to hear some people like to hear juicy stuff like current events. Other people like to hear straight Bible, and that's good. But on this channel, as the Lord has called me, I've been trying as best as possible to keep up with current events and news and understanding the time. So if you guys have been following me for a long time, you know that one of the most difficult topics that the Lord has given me the heart for is to understand the times. And whether you want to call that conspiracy, whether you want to call it eschatology and the end times, biblical, references and prophecies and all that stuff, all of this stuff is very difficult. And honestly, I was very happy. I said this before recently to another group of people, but I was very happy being, the sound engineer at a church, being in the back and quietly serving, turning knobs. Those guys at the worship team, they're just in the back. And they're just doing, random things. Nobody notices. And then if you do mess up, you get a lot of flack for it. But if you don't, nobody really cares, right? And so I was very content just doing that. And then, of course, this whole political thing, social justice stuff, and just prophetic dreams, just many things have just come about over the last several years. And it's just been a whirlwind because I know the Lord has been preparing me. In my BC days, before Christ, I was a big bully, and here we are, turning it all around. I've gotten bullied. I've gotten a lot of things, and this is part of the topic I'm going to talk about today, actually, and so this is where I'm going with this. But accused of blasphemous behavior, accused of just false, theology, teaching, and so many things. But right now is the time to be able to battle the narrative that we are living in. And so this is what I want to talk about today. And so real quickly, as you guys know, the election stuff is hot around the corner. So if you have been following the political stuff and all that, we know that the front runner and everything, it's just Trump all the way. And so a lot of people are in this category of support Trump and let's think about the next election and all that stuff. And so briefly, what I want to talk about is the narrative and sort of what people think is just crazy baloney conspiracy. And I've talked about this in the last couple of videos. But in addition to that, how that's relevant to the biblical times in the book of Acts, as well as how that relates right now and what the modern day version of this is. Because if many people, Christians of all types, are continually saying things like just ignore, the political stuff and all the division, just stop talking about it, stop addressing it, just focus on Jesus and just go back to the basics. And a lot of that is warranted. Of course, if you're distracted, and I always say this, like don't chew on bigger things. Like Paul talks about drinking baby milk and then, eating meat. If you can't handle the baby milk and you can't drink that, or rather the opposite, if you can't handle the meat and you're not in the baby milk stuff, then you have to go back to that. And so get back, to understanding who Christ is. Go back to, and again, I'm not saying that you have to be perfect and like a saint before you move on to the next thing. And the person that, studies this stuff or looks into political conspiracies and all that is better off than the person who, is not, theologically sound yet. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that it's going to be a big distraction for a lot of people because a lot of it is going to go over people's heads if you don't have the Holy Spirit in you and if you don't have a heart and a desire to understand truth. And so this is what I've been saying for a very long time, questioning sort of this whole narrative. And so I'm going to talk about this very briefly. I'm going to try to see I'm trying something new where I can sort of, let me see if I can do this now really quickly. I am doing something where I'm doing a live, so you can see my screen. Now let me see if I can do this. Ooh, nice. You could see that, right? So I'm going to share things, and then I have a talking head in the corner. Let me know really quickly if you guys can see that. Let me see I can see it on mine. Yep. All right, great. So I'm going to try to do more of this because this is more interactive, and I have the chat up. So I have all these monitors, and I have just different things prepared. So I will get right into it. So, all right. It's a tough topic, but it's much needed, right? So I'm going to go right to the Bible first because I love stories, right? Actually, you know what? I have my Bible in front of me, but I'm going to just flash it up like I just did to sort of get into this mode of screen share. So let's see if this works. Okay. So I just went to some website. This is Bible Gateway. Would encourage this is Acts 7. Okay, let me go back to Acts 6. So this is, I have a physical Bible, but a lot of people will say, just if you can, if you have the online version, that's good. But so I blurred out this word blasphemy because a lot of people will get preconceived notions about what it is, and they may click, they may not click. You can see in the title. But what I want to talk about is the modern day version of the movement of accusations of blasphemy. So what does that mean? I'm not talking about the deity of Christ and basic biblical truths. I'm talking about what is basically the narrative war, the information war we are living in today, and how it is eerily similar to what you are seeing when Stephen was accused of blasphemy in Acts chapter 6. Now let me read that. Verse 8. And Stephen, full of faith and power, did great wonders and signs among the people. Then there arose some from what is called the synagogue of the freedmen, Cyrenians, Alexandrians, and those from Cilicia and Asia, disputing with Stephen. And they were not able to resist the wisdom and the spirit by which he spoke. Then he secretly induced men to say, we have heard him speak blasphemous words against Moses and God. And they stirred up the people, the elders and the scribes. And they came upon him, seized him, and brought him to the council. They also set up false witnesses who said, this man does not cease to speak blasphemous words against this holy place and the law. For we have heard him say that this Jesus of Nazareth will destroy this place and change the customs which Moses delivered to us. And all who sat in the council looked steadfastly at him, saw his face as the face of an angel, right? Even as I read this, I am moved for Stephen because whether it's just the example I see from all these people trying to stand up for different things, whether it's biblical things like straight church or Christian like theology, or the aspect of righteousness. And I'm reading this, really putting myself in Stephen's shoes, because even though during that time, what was new to the people was the message of Christ, right? The message of Christ, of him preaching, probably arguing, I mean, I don't want to say arguing in the negative sense, but debating, Stephen going out there and saying, hey, listen, Jesus Christ is our Messiah, he's our Savior, and all of this Old Testament law, he's abolished it. We don't need to do this anymore. And the idea, the almost like blasphemous, hypocritical nature of, let's just get rid of all of this stuff. All of that sounds crazy, right? It just sounds so radically different from generations of people that have been taught as the Israelites, as the Jews, to do all this stuff. And who knows what other stuff Stephen, full of the Holy Spirit, right, was speaking in just this authoritative way in that time. And to the people, and I've said this many times, to those that are not as mature yet, or they come from a different background, right, they're looking at what is objective truth or subjective truth, however you want to look at what truth is. And I always say like their perception of reality. They look at that and they think, oh my gosh, like it's countercultural, it's against my preconceived notions, and they're just going at it. And the natural like inclination of the flesh, the movement of the flesh, right, is that they want to argue with Stephen. They want to say, Stephen, listen, man, you literally are being blasphemous, and you have to really relate to how Stephen was being put in this situation. We look at this now, right? If you're a full-fledged Christian, a believer, we look at this and say, no, I mean, these guys are wrong, meaning the synagogue of the freedmen. And we look at Stephen and we say, man, like you for sure stood for something. You stood for righteousness. You stood for truth, and you did it with courage, faith, with power, and you even did great signs and wonders, right? And so what's happening now, right, is the same type of movement. Now, I'm not going to get into the details of certain political things or figures and all that stuff, but what do we see today in the news, reporters? I mean, if you look at what is being spewed out of somebody who's an anchor, or just anybody, like if you go on Twitter these days and all of the comments, the juxtaposition, and everything that's happening there, what you will see is a similar sense of the spirit of argumentative, prideful hatred that comes up. And see what it says, right? It says that that they stirred up, right? Where is this? They stirred up the people, the elders and the scribes. They came upon him, seized him, and brought him to the council. Verse 13, they also set up false witnesses who said, this man does not cease to speak blasphemous words against this holy place in the law. So you got people today, right, who, and let's just pick some examples, right? And so I'm gonna get in this direction anyway. The 2020 election is a big question that people talk about these days. Yes, 3 years later, Trump keeps saying it. All of these conservatives keep saying it. Everybody that has sort of, quote unquote, done their research, they've been saying it, right? And whether it's the 2020 elections or any other topic, like any topic where people think that's conspiracy, that's baloney, all of this stuff is the same in the sense that somebody really either moved by the Holy Spirit or they have more deep insight knowledge, right? And I want to put Trump in there, right? You can see historically what he said and what's happened, what's transpired, and who has been lying and who hasn't. And it's been very consistent, right? And if you can't see some of that, even that would be a sign of, I want to say, delusion if you can't see certain things and what has been lies ever since like 2015, 2016. So you got people that are online, news anchors, other people, like whoever it is, maybe if you want to just say the left, right? The woke people, the liberal people. A lot of these guys are stirring up people. They're doing the same, like it's the same tactic. They're stirring up people, the elders, the scribes. They came upon him, seized him, brought him to the council, right? Who is being brought to the council in the sense of Jack Smith or some congressional thing, right? Or they're trying to get false witnesses. All these people, Eugene Carroll. I mean, whoever it is, right? They're setting. It's like literally the same playbook as what you're seeing in the Bible. And again, a lot of people who are purists, I don't even know the word, but whoever is studying the Bible in the sense of just Jesus, just your character, just your lifestyle, maybe your calling and stuff like that, they're going to see my synonymous example of looking at something like this and talking about politics as, bro, like that is not how you want to look at like this stuff and how it's relatable. But the fact is, any kind of life circumstance, right? If it involves truth, if it involves exposure, if it involves integrity, if it any of those things, you can line this up, right? Just like pin by pin, boulder by boulder, and you'll see that it's like the same playbook. And so this is why everything that's happening now, and again, whether it's political stuff, whether it's medical truth, whether it's, I don't know, just all realms of society, they're firing on all cylinders right now. You can see Twitter's blowing up everywhere. You got, like YouTube. You got people on TikTok and other social platforms. You got people in churches doing, like little get-togethers, topical Bible studies. I don't even want to say Bible studies, but just like these forums. They're talking. They're doing local get-togethers. What do you think of this? What is your take on this? And everything is in regards to some kind of truth, right? Some kind of either subjective truth, some kind of objective truth, some kind of like what's your understanding of what you believe is, factual or not. And so that's why, whether it's, your finances, whether it's the education system, this is why it's so important to be in the know. Educate yourself. I'm not saying you can fully know everything. I've always said before, a lot of us know certain things. We claim to know certain things. Some things are conjecture. Some things are theory. Some things, if you do enough due diligence and research, you will find that you will have peace in knowing what the answer is, right? So I have a lot of peace in a lot of what is the position in society today that a lot of people, I would even say now a vast majority, right? Whether it's 2020 election, do you think it's stolen or not? Is Biden illegitimate? Like all these questions, you would have a peace when you hear it and you say, okay, that something like by faith I'm moving, right? And I'm at peace knowing that there's something off. Maybe I don't know the full story. Maybe I don't know exactly what it is. I can directionally be correct. We're talking about, ballots, ballot harvesting, hacking, again, I don't want to get too deep in that. I've talked about that many times, right? But you can have that kind of peace. And so I'm saying this because when you're trying to discern, right, what's going on, why Christians are sort of, I don't want to say like putting their all in, but they have their reputation on the line. They have things that it just doesn't make sense. Trump, for example, he's always said, many people have always said, this guy was well off. He could have retired, played golf for the rest of his life. He could have not done any of this whole mess. And look at what kind of a target he was as he put himself out there, trying to stand up for certain things. And again, I've said this before, nobody's worshiping Trump. Nobody's here, like putting him on a pedestal. Some people may be, right? But I won't speak for them as being true Christian believers because you never want to idolize somebody. But what I'm saying is, as an example, whether it's Trump or whether it's somebody else, the same thing is happening right now. You have Stephen being accused of blasphemy because people on the other side of whatever, perspective it is that you want to see this from. And in this case, they have been introduced to something super like foreign, super new. And that's why these guys are reacting in the way they are because they're not able to humble themselves, really question things, really look at something and say, okay, maybe there's something that I've got to examine. And I've said this before. There's a certain attitude you've got to have to be able to say and look at the situation at hand and say, you know what, maybe so many people are asking this question, they believe it. So many people are saying that this is true, right? And if you sit there and really ask yourself, instead of knee-jerk reactions, instead of saying, you know what, that's all conspiracy, everybody else is, agreeing with it. And I always say this, like when Jesus, at the time of Jesus, you look at Jesus, you look at everybody else, and you're trying to size it up, and you're using illogical fallacies to sort of size up the situation, which is that everybody else is throwing stones at him. Everybody else, my favorite, leader over here, all the respectable Sadducees and Pharisees and all these people, they are doing the same thing. And so I'm going to align with that perspective, and I'm going to, agree with that. And so if you have that as sort of, I don't want to say, like, sorry, something just popped up here. I'm just trying to fix something. By the way, you guys can still hear me, right? This is one of my first lives. It is literally 7:36. It's not pre-recorded. I'm trying to look at chat. I'm also trying to look a little bit at this new format I'm doing. And there's a latency, so this is why it's confusing me slightly. But it's good, right? Okay, good. Yeah, I mean, so that's one thing. I do need. Yeah, I know people are asking for moderators too, so I do need. That would be pretty good. So I get a lot of comments. I get so many things, guys. There are AI attackers that it's crazy how this world has come. It's good in a sense, but in other ways it has been very, very difficult. So, okay. So yes, I'm definitely going to consider that. So as a mod, okay. So I fixed this. Okay, so this is good. And so bear with me, guys. I'm going to try to do more of these lives and try to be a little bit more interactive. At the same time, be as clear with the message that I have. I'm trying to prepare a lot more these days. As you guys can see, I have slideshows and stuff like that. But I'm also trying out this new format, which is working great for the most part. So now what I'm going to do is I gotta set up this slideshow really quickly. I actually did not get to test this part. Let me just make sure that it goes to the right monitor. Give me 1 second, guys. Okay, perfect. All right, so I've talked about this before, okay? So I need to revisit this just briefly, okay? Because what you will see, okay, so what you will see is, here, let me just do this. Okay, yes. So I recognize some people, and I have set up something just now. So give me a second. Okay, yes, I see that comment, and you know what that means. Okay, so that's good. Okay, so I did that. So let me say this, okay? Let me change this. Okay, bear with me, guys. I'm still trying to change this thing. Okay, so if you guys have seen my video before, talking about the 3 audiences, you know that you've seen the slide, but I've also talked about this. The 3 audience thing is something that you really have to pay attention to going into the 2024 election, okay? I want to say this because, again, this leads into what is probably the biggest topic that has been on my mind in the last 3-4 years in this in this awakening movement. So, which is what's really going on, right? So again, I'm trying to do a half smooth transition from what is theological blasphemy of who Christ is from what Acts chapter 6 was into basically this idea today of what is your perception of reality, right? And it's an attack on your livelihood, on what's really going on all fronts. And again, this is not the best slide, but I'm just flashing it very briefly, which is that I've talked about how certain people are going to speak to a certain group consistently throughout the rest of, and it's been happening the last 3 or 4 years, but into this year, which is that sometimes Trump or these other people, they're going to say and have this sort of facade in speaking to people saying, yes, there's a 2024 election. Yes, all these things are bad. Yes, Biden is bad and all, whatever it is. But then a very small group, which I call the audience 3, is being spoken to consistently. So this is why this is not a movement that I started. This is not a movement that, me or other Christians have done. It is just naturally occurring because a lot of people are strangely just questioning things and curious about why it is that people like, or movements like Q, for example, have correctly predicted or stated what's happening, as in like what's happening in behind the scenes, or have stated something and it's statistically impossible for that to continually happen, or have said certain things, name drop certain things, and it has happened sometime in the future and almost to the dot. They call them deltas, like 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. And one of the things that people will never forget is that I think it was like 3, 4, or 5 years ago, somebody asked, and this happens all the time. This is happening all the time. In the Q boards, somebody asked, in your next speech, use the words like tippy-toppy or something like that. And then in the very next speech, like in Easter or something, he used the words tippy-toppy shape or something in his speech, validating him as either Q plus or whatever it was. So all of this stuff has consistently happened. And in this idea of who the target audience is, you're going to have comms, if you want to call it that. You're going to have people that are going to believe what they want to believe. I've said before that this is a whole movie that you're watching, and people don't believe that, right? And to the degree that, yes, there is natural evil, to the degree that there's certain people that, are not good, and others that are white hats disguised as, I want to say black hats. I've argued that for Biden, this fake Biden, and a slew of other people, right? So I'm saying this because as we get into 2024, if you listen to other, podcasts or people like, like X22 or And We Know, or just many of these podcasters, they're going to continually address the audience 2 people. They're going to sometimes touch on audience 3, but then there's certain channels or people, rather, like Patel Patriot comes to mind, Derek Johnson comes to mind, where they're going to continually address audience 3. So there's a delineation you need to have to be able to look at something and say, okay, what Trump is addressing or saying secretly as he is doing these, political rallies, these, speeches and stuff like that, he's saying certain things, and it kind of is stringing people along in the sense that, yeah, I'm going to be the nominee for this quote-unquote 2024 election, and all is, bad in the sense that look at the economy, look at Biden, look at what he's doing, and then it's waking people up. I've said this before. It's waking the normies in audience 1 and moving them to audience 2, and then they're continually kind of operating in this realm. Like they're waking up to what this woke, liberal, and conservative agenda is. They're waking up to like, oh, what news is telling, like you can't just like believe what they say, as well as all of these other realms. If you noticed, you have dedicated channels, okay? There's dedicated people who, and like, praise God, right? But these people are being redeemed in this hour for the Great Awakening in their respective sort of, funnels, which is, if it's food and drug, if it's the education system. I see a lot of young people now. They're addressing like this satanic stuff in like the entertainment business, right? So you have people that are looking at like all of what is it, Taylor Swift. They're looking at like all of these like celebrities that are doing these rituals and saying, look at the number system. Look at what they're, Travis Scott. Look at what he's doing, what he's saying. And everybody is like, all the young people, they're in on this. So they're trying to dig. They get deeper and deeper into like, oh my gosh, like, look what I found. Look at the symbolism they use. Then they get into things like, well, have you heard about the Illuminati? Or have you heard about the New World Order? And then you go into the children stuff and all this, stuff that I can't really say on this live. But they're digging down into that sort of realm. And they may not know about Q. They may not know about this other stuff that a lot of us have known about, but it's crazy because all of these, Instagram accounts, TikTokers, and I say TikTok because that's where a lot of the young people are at. They're waking up and they're making this content saying, look at this, look at that symbol, look at this, look at what the demonic system is using, all of these symbols and signs and blah, blah, blah. And they're waking up to each their own. So they're all looking at their respective areas of interest. People that had been gung-ho about Hollywood, they've been gung-ho about their favorite celebrity, they've been gung-ho about, you even it's not just young people, but like, for example, I see a lot of young moms and parents, 40s, 50s, whatnot. They're all like trying to take care of their kids. They're looking at like the drugs, the health, they're looking at the food that they're eating, autism, and just all of this stuff for their kids. And they're just freaking out because they realize what's in the system, what they're doing. They're talking about farming, they're talking about spraying, they're talking about all this stuff. And the thing is that all these people, to each their own, they're waking up and they are sort of this modern day Stephen, right? And again, people are going to give me slack. Well, Stephen was a martyr for the true gospel and, biblical like theology being corrected from the Old Testament to New Testament. That's true. Yes, that's fine. But the same thing is happening with regards to truth. The same thing is happening with regards to how the correction of a demonic force is stifling and constricting our youth, right? Look at, the LGBTQ, the more than two gender movement, all of this stuff is a demonic influence that is not necessarily targeting, this book, like, oh, Christ is God, and he's the triune God, and it's not like that to that degree. Because if you want to say we solved that issue, because many theologians over the last several hundred years have corrected it, you kind of have to just sift through the material. But now people are waking up to new realms of things that Satan has established in the order of the last couple hundred years, which, whether it's in music and in dance, whether it's in whatever it is, like this whole I don't want to say like medical system that has been infiltrated by the Rockefellers and these guys, but this is what's happened. It's come to the point for which in all realms of society, Satan has been strategizing, trying to, whether it's population control, early deaths, just all of this stuff. Things are out of control. Obesity, disease, so many things, life expectancy, a lot of this stuff, and even psychological disorders, whether it's depression, whether it's, just a whole slew of stuff like DSM-4. If you just look up like the psychological disorders, there's so many things now than there was ever before. And you have to think about what that means. Like we had natural things, sunlight, we had, like we were able to like touch the ground, right? And now we have, we wear things, we can't have our natural sort of intake of certain materials, minerals and stuff that we did before. And we have all this stuff that's happening. We think that we're doing better and we're improving, and we are in some sense. But the point is that there's also a reversal in that. When Satan comes, or when God blesses and he raises things up, then he's also going to have, Satan rather, is going to come and he's going to try to inject themselves in some way. That's why there's that passage talking about, and not exactly specifically for this, but God saying, let these people, these plants, these weeds grow up together, and then at the harvest we'll separate them and we'll bring, the good harvest in, and then we will burn the rest, right? So in some sense, by God's allowance of free choice, free will. Some of this is happening for a reason because Satan is having his time in some sense, and it's happening on all fronts. So that's why, even though a lot of people say, hey, we have to focus on the Bible, on Jesus, and all that stuff. That's true. That's fine. That's good. But if it's an excuse to ignore and not address other issues of your health, of your well-being, of your education system, of how you conduct political affairs and all this stuff, and it's a cop-out answer to not really dig deeper and chew on, meditate on, wrestle with that information, then you are doing yourself a disservice to the degree that it is not helping you, right? So this is where I want to speak just briefly, because so many people are still in this realm of, again, I'm just going to address this very quickly, because a lot of people are still confused about what's happening with regards to the Trump stuff, as well as just this whole continuity of what happened. So I've said before, like 4 years ago, that Trump would be president again. He would have 2 consecutive terms, and that God was showing me prophetically in dreams and many things of this. And so I've said at the time, I wasn't, pumping my chest saying, oh, I'm a prophet and, I want to declare this or whatever. I was just led and moved to declare something that I felt the Lord was showing me. And I did that in boldness. I did that in confidence, in peace. But the question that a lot of us have wrestled with, right? Prophetic people as well as seers and just intercessors, so many people, is what's really going on? Like, you said this, people have said this, I've gotten this too, I've had the same dreams, or I've been shown certain things, I've had the peace overwhelming me and all that stuff. And people were really wondering, was that wrong? Or what's really going on? And so as the last couple of years have played out, and admittingly, I was sitting there like certain nights, like in some sense frustrated, like, Lord, like, what's going on? Like, I really, I'm confused at what's happening. Like, it looks like visibly, Trump lost and he's not the president or whatever it is. What's going on? And so the Lord had been continuing to educate me as I was trying to research what's happening. And this is the same conclusion now that millions and millions of people are coming to, right? Which is that not everything is what it seems. And you are quite literally, like it says here, you're watching a movie. And so this is where all the Q stuff is coming into play, where, and again, I'm just going to briefly say what I said a couple of videos ago, which is that you have to think about it this way, right? The election steal of 2020 was one of the biggest crimes that we could ever see in this century, which is that of one of the biggest, arguably number one country, right, in the world, somebody tried to hijack that to bring somebody else in as president by doing all of these nefarious things, right? And so that set up I guess it set something up so that the military had the right to make a certain move. But the smartest military commanders and generals, they came in the room and they said, okay, we know that, and again, Trump had said this during COVID, they're going to use COVID to shut down the world, and that happened. And they're going to bring in and introduce mail-in ballots so that we can use the mail-in ballots to steal and ballot harvest and do all these things. And so that happened, right? People were skeptical what's going on, and over the last few years, a lot of evidence, and I don't want to say the full evidence, has come out for which this is something that a lot of people believe. And so you have to realize the gravity of what that is. Remember, Trump and many others have concretely declared, right? And whether you like him or not, people that understand body language, they understand people and how they're convicted in saying something, they would tell you that Trump was very, and many other people, they're very authentic. They're very genuine in believing what they are saying, which is that Trump believes the 2020 election was actually stolen. So these people will look at and analyze his body and say, nah, he's not salty. He's not a sore loser. He genuinely believes that this election was stolen. So if that is out, right, or rather, if that is true, then he would have done something, right? So this is the logic you have to follow. What he did can't be something that is, let's just tell everybody that the election was stolen and I'm going to get the election back and I'm going to be back in office, and everyone will just believe me, and then we'll arrest everybody, and then I'll install myself back in office on January 20th of 2021. But as more research has come out, we've talked about the bankrupt U.S. corporation taking back our sovereignty from the, if you want to call it from England, from the Queen, and from just this royal family and all of that, and by extension the papacy, the Vatican, and all that stuff. There's all of that stuff, right? And there's more complexity to this than just the election part of it. And so these guys had come up with a plan. And again, this is contingent, and it's all of this is based on the fact that the election was truly stolen by foreign powers. And when that happened, then Trump, he had to do something. And so this is why a lot of these people, whether they're Christian or not, they're analyzing whether it's the executive orders, the law of war manual, all of these things, and the PEDs. Who knows what's in the PEDs? And all of these strange movements. Again, I don't talk about it on this channel as much, but if you follow guys like Patel Patriot, Badlands Media, and just so many channels, there's so many channels out there. They literally comb through all of this detail, right? And they look at it and they think there's something happening with regards to devolution, which is that the government, the U.S., was dissolved, or it was devolved, and control was given over like to the military leaders and stuff like that. And so we've been in an act of, or in a state, whether it's secret martial law or whether it's some other stuff, some kind of continuity of government this whole time. And what we're seeing is a wake-up movie that's happening. Trump talks about central casting all the time. He talks about, this person, that person. He even recently the fights, quote unquote, like bashing Vivek, and then all of a sudden Vivek, Ron, all these guys backing, supporting Trump, getting his endorsement, and all that stuff. It's happening, right? The question is, why is this happening? And why, at the speed that we think is supposed to be the solution, rounding everybody up, why is that not done? He says the best is yet to come, and all this stuff. The point is that the logic follows that something else is happening behind the scenes that we really just, again, a lot of us have good hypotheses in terms of what's happening, but a lot of us really don't know concretely what really is happening behind the scenes. And this is what Q talks about when he says like only a handful of people are in the know. And so this is where we, as a body of Christ, we're trying to have faith in the sense that we know God is working. He's working through certain people, because God, when he moves, yes, he can move just by moving the air and moving things, but often he will work through people. And that person at the time, like if you look at stories in the Bible, not everybody in the whole, like Moses, King David, whoever, not everybody's going to know everything in that society. But King David knew because, he was shown things, right? And Moses knew because he had direct access to God. And so some of these people, who knows how God is speaking to these people? Angelic visitations, right? The Holy Spirit really speaking maybe audibly all the time. These people are in the know of something, and they probably have access to Area 51 and all this stuff, Nephilim, giants, demonic, satanic stuff. I would not be surprised if Satan himself has some kind of visible manifestation in this time, and he's going around to the biggest guys, talking to them, and then you have, a modern day Daniel who has angelic visitations similar to how Michael and all these angels visited Daniel. So who knows if that's happening right now? But we, as a normal person, and again, I'm not trying to belittle me or anybody else here. We're just a normal person. Our name is not going to be probably written to the degree that it may be a summary story like what Daniel and what Moses, what King David was. Yes, we are a child of God. Yes, we have a place in heaven. We will be there. But the degree to which the spiritual warfare and how it's happening is something that we will never fully understand until we get to heaven, probably. And even if these guys are explaining it, like, hey, listen, I am, the 4-star military general, and suddenly I got a visitation like what, Paul had, Saul becoming Paul, and this is what happened. And the angel visited me, and he told me to do this and that, and it was such a clear encounter. a lot of people are going to blow him off as like some kind of bogus person. I believe that whatever is happening, God is literally there, hand in hand, working with these people and saying, listen, Satan is manifesting in this person or that person. He's walking around like that. What's happened with the giants and all this stuff, like that's true, but most of the population, they're not going to buy it or believe it. So it's up to you. And I've shown you confirmation 3 times through dreams, through XYZ, whatever it is. And it's probably happening, right? To the degree that it's very real, similar to the characters in the Bible. And so I believe that as a lot of these people who God has given platforms to, right? They're being used. I mean, there's a lot of prophetic people. There's a lot of people that have different roles. Some people are straight analyzers. They're patriot Christians. They're analyzing. They're literally digging into the documentation. They're very technical, and they're basically like synthesizing it, and then they're like packaging it in a way that it's easily digestible to the population. There's other people who are consistently getting prophetic words and dreams, and they're like a straight prophet in that office. And there's so many people, but they're all working in this realm of exposing of truth and the higher, bigger picture, right? And so this is where I've been saying that as God has called me to this, and I would say I'm more of an apostolic, like watchman type of thing. I'm not like a pure this, pure that. And again, I don't want like titles either. And I think God has left it that way, where I'm just trying to, from a layman's perspective, as a common person, explain things and try to get people to question it, think through it. And yes, I'm going to get flack. Yes, I'm going to get the haters. Yes, I'm going to get criticism. Yes, I'm probably going to misunderstand something because in that moment, I'm trying to like discern what happened. And probably it's maybe not a surprise that even in Stephen's like book, right? I mean, in Stephen's story, he was trying to figure out certain things. And even though the Bible doesn't say it, and again, I'm not trying to misconstrue Stephen and whatnot, but maybe he was trying to figure something out. Maybe he misspoke and somebody took that word and tried to like, scramble it up and all that stuff, but he was directionally correct or he was fundamentally correct, but people are misunderstanding words, or quite possibly he made a mistake on certain things. And this is where all of the chaos is coming in, right? So this is the same thing that's happening where a lot of us that are trying to understand the drops, the comms, the Q stuff, like all of these different things. Like what is the theory behind this? How do you think the devolution is working out? How is martial law working out? How is the National Guard working out? Like what's really factual? And this is even more, I would argue, this is more confusing than any other time in history because we are bombarded with so much of whether it's truths, whether it's like false information, and there's a spectrum, right? There's always a spectrum of it could be used as good for bad or bad used for good, and there's just this mix of psychological warfare that's happening. And so that's why it's so confusing. It's one of the most confusing times in history because a lot of us have been saying things which is true, but it was used as a decoy for something else. And again, I know it sounds very vague, but if you have been following any news, right, this is the case for so many things. It's just, it is what it is. And so this is where respectable people, when they look at somebody, oh, like you said this happened or that happened, and that was just a theory or conjecture, when they're like, I don't want to say wrong, but if it was just their own thinking for something, a lot of people will latch onto that and then say that, oh, you're wrong, and then automatically discredit everything else. So this is where it gets very dangerous, where people, whether it's Trump, right, and I don't know, his past or history, whether it's somebody like Saul in the Bible, where if you saw Paul in that time, and I apologize, I'm like speaking and my mouth is getting dry. If you saw Paul in that time and you said, you know what, Paul, like I can't get beyond the fact that you killed Christians and now you think you are this like new like 13th or 12th apostle and you think you're working for Jesus and all that stuff. A lot of us are thinking the same thing when we point fingers at Trump or we point fingers at that person. We're using all of the other baggage, if you want to say, or just their past, and they've been redeemed, they've been changed, and they're illogical in how they are coming to a conclusion on something based on some fallacy of their past or something else. And so I don't know what the term is in terms of uh, mis misappropriating or misconnecting something and making drawing a conclusion to something else, some kind of fallacy. But that's what's happening with whether it's people, it's a circumstance, and this is why it's so hard in this time to get beyond this information war that we are in. The information war is heavy. It's so difficult to get beyond that it's confusing a lot of us in a sense, and a lot of us have been misled intentionally because whether it's the white hats or whether it's the black hats, they've given something, we've latched onto it, and that's why people say there's the 2 week rule. You just have to, if any news comes out, just like wait 2 weeks, let it settle, and let us sort of decipher it. Let all the people, the anons, the sleuths, the truthers, the people behind the scenes, let them all come out with their side of the story before we jump to conclusions. So a lot of this is happening, and it's hard to get beyond it. The same thing happened as people were trying to figure out, and you could literally read the whole book of Acts and see that people were trying to wrestle through certain theological debates, right? Circumcision was a great example. Like, okay, what, like all the smartest guys got in the room. They're trying to figure out, should the Gentiles be circumcised? And that was a big topic of that day. And the same thing is happening right now for many topics as people are trying to figure out, well, what is devolution? Well, what could happen? What constitutionally could happen? What is this, new republic versus the U.S. corporation? What is this stuff? And they're trying to figure it out. And that whole process, you can't get to, if it's new to anybody, you have to allow that to kind of go through its system. And same thing happened with the topic of circumcision back in the book of Acts, as well as probably many, obviously, undocumented things that have happened throughout that time. So, again, I say this because right now, it's super hard. And I'm not going to lie, it was hard for me. It's one of the, I don't even want to say most stressful because God was with me. And so if God is with you, nothing is, bad in that sense. But still, it's very difficult, right? I come from a background of high skepticism. I come from a background of, man, and I say this from a fleshly perspective, but my pride is on the line. Like, I don't want to be wrong, right? I don't want to sound like a doofus. And I don't want to say this in any arrogant way, but I did pretty well for myself. And to throw that all away for my reputation because I was wrong about something, that's hard to swallow. But I'm also one where I'm so inquisitive, like I just want to know, and it's also probably a fleshly thing, or it could be redeemed for a good thing. I want to know so bad that I have to like go deep in it. Like I'm almost like an all or nothing kind of person, which I mean it works in some fashion, but in others it could be problematic. But I say it because in this specific topic of what's really going on, it's directly impacting me. Because I've stated it. I don't know, what's going to happen on Judgment Day, if I stand before God. But I really want to know. And so this is where a lot of us, Anons, Q people, or truthers, Christians, they're all, doing the same thing. They're trying to figure it out. They're giving people the benefit of the doubt, right? Just because the media is saying, oh, QAnon is evil and it's a MAGA right-wing, whatever. And, they're saying, before you just, eat that up, go look into it and say, okay, what are the Q drops? Let me read, at least read the first 1,000 Q drops, right? There's thousands, right? Read it and think okay, what's the likelihood that somebody like this, whoever is posting this, would know this amount of information? And that's not just Q. It's several other things, all these guys that are constitutional attorneys and military people, they're all talking about these executive orders. They're dissecting it. They're looking at Trump and the way he gives comms. He said certain things like, I'm a wartime president, right? Whatever, all these different phrases. They're saying it and they're really trying to look beyond and not laugh at him. So many people laugh at it because they just, again, I say before, they come to a conclusion oh, that just sounds too ridiculous. That just sounds too much like a conspiracy. That just sounds too absurd. And it's disrupting their sort of, their normal sort of outlook on life, right? It's breaking their paradigm of what they're comfortable with in their outlook of society, of their life. So if it breaks that and it sort of interrupts that, they're going to sort of defend that naturally by just rejecting it, by saying, "Oh, that's baloney, that's conspiracy," without regard to trying to investigate like what's going on. So this is what's happening. So I say this because part of me wants to convince a lot of people that are on the fence, or they're just, again, like I'm like looking at some comments and it's just like some of these guys, they're again, like nobody, like people should understand that whether it's Trump, whether it's anybody, you're always just going to have, it's like Jesus, the apostles. There's some people, they will always just hate you, and they're never going to, and Q said this too, like 5% of people are just not going to believe it. No matter what you do, whatever evidence you put out in front of them, they're just going to be disillusioned, or they're just going to believe whatever they want to believe. And there's always going to be that group. But at the same time, those that are on the fence, or wherever you are in your scale, sort of in your journey or your level of skepticism, all of that can change. And so I'm trying to target different groups too. So oftentimes I'll talk to audience 3, and maybe I'll label it like advanced on my, like a little ticker up here in my thumbnail, or I will talk to the awakened people. So that's why sometimes the when I say and contrast, like compare and contrast, like Biden, like, oh, this is bad and blah blah blah, knowing in the back of my mind that I think that he's an actor, probably used by the white hats to project a sense of negativity, such that it's a reverse operation. It's like a reverse psychology to awaken people. I know it sounds crazy. I covered this in a different video, but some people think he's just a straight black hat, but he's not, of course, Biden. But stuff like that is where I target people too. And so I know a lot of people have graduated beyond that, like, oh, like I already know about that. But it's still tough because I'm trying to target 2 different people. And I know I have audience 3 and I have audience 2 in this this channel, but I try to go back and forth a bit as well. But and then you'll have people that are audience 1, just 1 foot in, they're trying to really be open-minded about it, and that's good. And then you'll have people that are just on the opposite side, or they're further above me in the sense of whether it's spiritually, whether it's in age and like seeing it like for decades, or inside knowledge, like straight military people. I think I have like some white hats too, like literally like white hats that have watched. I've been told and been given that. I mean, I don't want to talk too much into that, but there's people that analyze this stuff. Like they want to know too, like whether it's a prophetic word or a dream, or whether it's other analysis. Like what are people really saying about this? Because they're trying to gather all of this stuff. So anyway, so that's what I wanted to cover today. I wanted to cut this at the hour mark, so I'll probably start closing up here. But let me see. Let's look at some comments. All right. Hope you guys were blessed. Again, these days I've been really trying to target the awakening. I feel God is moving me into sort of that realm right now. I've been doing that for a while, but I also try to give words of encouragement and exhortation. From a views perspective or interest perspective, it doesn't seem as high, but I know that it's very impactful for those that really need to hear it. So you guys know that sometimes I'll just, God will lead it, Holy Spirit will lead it, and it'll just like be me like going off, like encouraging somebody and really talking about some like very common life thing, right? Like standing up, having courage and stuff like that. So, all right. So yeah, I think the admin thing is working. So, and just other stuff, mods and all that. So let's see. Okay. Yeah, it's just, there's just so many, and thanks for participating, guys. Thanks for participating. This is good. Let's see. I'm just trying to go through some things. Okay. So, by the way, I do want to say that I am, even though I'm all for the truth movement and just like trying to get exposure for different things. There are some things that either I don't have an opinion on, like directly yet. Like for example, like I've talked about like the quantum financial system and all that stuff. Like I'm not there to like really. I'm not disregarding it, but I'm not here to like hold my hand and like say I stand on this side or that. And as well as many other things, whether you want to call them conspiracy theories and all that. So it's hard because a lot of people will just group all of the conspiracies into one when people will stand for one or disregard the other one and not believe it, and they're not holding hands with that. So that's why it's tough. It's tough because once you put yourself out there, people automatically assume that you're one of those like conspiracy theorists and whatnot. So be careful, right? Be careful how you're not only being portrayed, but also how you project and discuss your views on something. But more people are going to be curious. More people are going to like start asking these questions. They're going to want answers. They're going to want people to really walk them through things. So I would suggest that many of you that are in this boat, like you have to be ready. Like especially as people like go to the polls and like vote, right? So again, under the facade of we're gonna have this next election and all that stuff, people are going to really ask that because back in 2015 and like 2016, people were, and we know this because the polls and all that, they were wrong, but they were closet Trump supporters. They didn't want to come out there and start overtly saying that they stand for him. But now you have more of that, like even Democrats or people that are, I just recently am following some like Chicago stuff, like South Side Chicago, and all these, black or African American people are like standing up now, like we want Trump and blah blah blah, and like it's very telling, like how much it's changed since that election, 2015, 2016 to now, and it's still going to be chaotic. And so that's why I think a lot of us, especially if and you've been in this for a while, I would now be in that camp of I've probably been in this fight for a while now, like 4 or 5 years. I don't know. I don't know if that's as long as many of you guys have had ever since Trump and Q and all this stuff. But we have to be in this sort of fight in that when people ask, be ready. Be ready to explain and to give your opinion and all that stuff. So okay, so let me see if there's other stuff I can address. There's so many different comments. I know I'm trying to group it into the direction of what this topic was and how we need to kind of prepare for the future. I will talk about some of the other stuff that Trump is hinting. I know a lot of people have been questioning and thinking, what are we going to see up until 2020, the elections and all that stuff. So I've been talking a little bit about that, but I think I want to get a little bit more specific because one of the things that is very telling is when Trump warns people about stuff. Recently, he's been warning people about there will be like this attack with all of the migrants and all this stuff that's coming in. There's going to be an attack. Like he says stuff like there's going to be an attack. And then he's also said as a reassurance, like we will have like one-day voting ballots. We will have voter ID and all that stuff. Like they won't steal it this time. Last time he said, like, they're going to steal it. They're going to steal it. And then this time, like, they're not going to steal it. They're not, So it's kind of like, like, again, these are the small clues that we have to, like, pay attention to because he's, like, what he's doing is he's, like, he has the military. He's commander-in-chief, right? Like a lot of us believe. And he's literally, like, kind of spoon-feeding and kind of slowly releasing things so that the audience 3 and the people that are awake, they can kind of like massage it and kind of like wrestle with it and then kind of disperse it. And then other people that are like an audience 2, they will continually wake up more. And so this is where people that I know a lot of channels and different people, they like track every like speech. They're giving giving hints. Like they're like trying to like they're hyper analyzing the speech because it's happened before. Like the reason they're analyzing his speech is because when you listen to what he said ever since like 2014, 2015, 2016, like it's come true or he's said something that made sense like a year later, like or 2 years later. And so that's why, because he's been like consistent, like that's why he's like the people are like looking at him, like analyzing what he's saying so that they can kind of I don't want to say predict or like prophesy, but basically looking at, okay, like this is what the enemy will probably do, and this is probably what will be allowed. Or it's, again, like it's a movie, it's being played out to the T because we have actors doing things. And this is where Trump is sort of foreshadowing some of that stuff. So that's why people are paying attention to that stuff. So it'll be very telling what will happen this year. So again, I'm not trying to like instill fear about, the attack and all that stuff, but like don't ignore it, right? Don't ignore, like, directionally, where is this going? All these videos are coming out from the border and just these people crossing, and like some of the interviews, and it's just very shady stuff, right? So again, no, like again, we love people. God loves people. God wants everybody to be saved, but there are some people that Satan has infiltrated, is using, and is manifesting through, and they're going to like be in alliance with him, and they're going to be paid off, blackmailed, even, like, sadly, and this is where we are. So right, like Black Swan and stuff like that. So okay, so I think I'm going to end it here soon. Thank you for a relatively active and sane chat. I'm going to try to do more of this, guys. I'll have like a topic or two in mind. And if you want to send me questions, or you can comment questions, I'm going to try to group it so that it's within the realm of something that I'm comfortable talking about. Because where many other people, they talk about the direct issue, I don't have time as much to read through, like 30 legal documents, or analyze every single speech from 15 different cabinet or like direct members of Trump and stuff like that, or other political leaders in other countries. I don't have that time, and people will go through that. But I love analyzing the movement and the trends, just like what I did with looking at the story of this accusations of blasphemy, like the modern day version of it, right? And like kind of analyzing it from a top down perspective in the movement, and how to like look at it like from that perspective, if that makes sense. And then that would encourage people to pray. It will give you topics to be armed with, as well as do your own sort of research, and your own like you would have a lens to view things through, so that you can go out and do whatever it is that you have to do to make decisions for your family, in your workplace, and whatever it is, right, that affects you. So all right, so just kind of scanning through some other things. So yeah, pray about voting. If you haven't, thought about that, just definitely go into that. Yeah, and let's, the thing about dissenters, like if they're polite dissenters, that's fine, but you can't be spamming, guys. Like you can't be using, whatever AI or this and that, and just like like there's so many bad things that kind of come about. Be a polite, person. If you are, I mean, I know I have the haters that have been here for years now. I literally don't know how you guys spend your time. Like you like comment all day and night. It's crazy. It's crazy. Like that's part of me is flattered. And one day, like the reason I like, in some sense, like I don't want to say like tolerate that, but I pray one day that if you listen to me this long, all day, every day, commenting and talking and just being here, that in some near future, if you turn and you are saved, you come to Christ, that you would look at that and say, oh man, like this man showed me grace during that time, because that even though I may speak out against the movement and different things, but I'm never here to outright like, curse you and just, be negative in that sense. So I hope one day you guys definitely, yeah, I like pray for many of you guys in that sense, like coming to Christ and that, and wake up. And there's other people, you just have to you got to show them grace, right? As they're waking up and as they're trying to go through their own journey. So just like Christ, he did that for the kids, right? Everybody from kids down to, Mary and Martha and just the woman at the well, and, all these people. So they have their own journey they have to get through. So, all right. So good stuff. I will probably end it here. Guys, I also need a lot of prayer, because I'm trying to, I want to say something personally. So I've been struggling a lot trying to figure out and navigate this whole business process. So I have been going through lots of different upturns and downturns. So things like the website design and just stuff that I thought would be good, but it turned out not to be good. It's sort of you get what you pay for type of thing, and just many other things. So I know in the business realm, in that world, I've had my share of corporate experiences, consulting, and all that stuff. But as God is moving me into more entrepreneurial things, being more, and I've always been entrepreneurial, but I'm trying to get into a position of, right, yeah, that's good, yeah. People mention advisors and stuff, so I really am trying to make sure that people will come in my life that would also, I don't want to say like they're super rich and just in that ultra like Christian rich category, but grow in that area because I think that God has a plan for me for big things, world reaching type things, and I have to be ready for that. And so I have great experience in the business world. I've had the privilege of working at some of the best companies and in consulting and business and stuff like that. So I have, relatively strong business acumen, but, humbly speaking, I have to be in a place where I'm still learning and growing and in different realms of just marketing and business strategy and stuff like that. So that's something where I'm kind of really, it's taking up some time, and it's also a little bit of a Joseph in prison type of scenario right now. So pray for me. I'm looking at trying to get seed funding and just many other things because I'm trying to get that gift packaging business that you guys know of up and running, as well as many other things. So I have merch, but the merch is not going to cut it. It's just something that's attached to my store and to me, really, that a lot of influencers do. But the big thing is to get up and running the gift packaging business, and a lot of that is going to be based on new fulfillment methods, AI even. And again, I know people get nervous about some parts of AI, but if you really use it and redeem it in a godly way, it's not. I think that there's validity to that. It's not like just straight like demonic thing, but there's some things, just like how we use, internet and YouTube and certain things. We looked at it with skepticism 10, 15 years ago. But now, depending on how you take the reins of it, like you can really use it for big things. So this is where I want to try to go. So yes, would love to support. My GoFundMe is still there. We're not anywhere near the goal, but I'm trying to see if we can get there. Yes. So yeah, do not be afraid of AI or GPT. God wants us to be on top of those technology. Absolutely. Let me say this for ChatGPT. I know some people have some thoughts about that. I actually use ChatGPT a lot, more than Google these days or any other like search engine. And the way I use it is it's not like I even use it. It's funny because I even use it in a biblical way. Like I'll prompt it to say, like for example, I'm trying to find all the passages. It's like a query. Like I'm trying to find all the passages that talk about XYZ topic. Now I can sit here manually and go through this whole book and do that, and it'll come to my mind, but it takes a little bit more time than needed. But because I'm redeeming it in the sense that it's doing the work for me, like when it's giving me a passage, it's not like, like you can fact check that, right? Like, okay, the story of this in, Jonah chapter, whatever, like you go and look at, Jonah is an obvious chapter that I know, but certain Psalms or certain like deep things, like you can use it in a way that you can, it helps you. So yes, there are, I think, I've talked about like AI and possibly the future and how the Antichrist movement and all this stuff that will happen, but there are ways that you can redeem it because if you're using it to understand what the input is to the output, then you will get that output and it'll be used for what you want it to be used for. So don't go out there and like start asking like crazy things that might open up some weird portal or something like that or demonic like thing. But you can use it similar to how we're prompting it on Google or in any search engine, right? So it's about how you kind of use it. So I come from a big tech background that I've worked at a like the world's largest or the most prestigious like tech consulting company. So from that perspective, I have a lot of tech experience, and so this is where, doing like like audio engineering in church is like the closest thing like to any kind of tech stuff. So that's kind of my bread and butter, or my sort of worldly part of where God had opened my perspective up in the business world. But yeah, I mean, a story for another day. Okay, so still trying to, yeah, people are still, I think the election stuff is a very big thing that we'll continue to address going into the year. But there's a lot of things happening, guys. There's a lot of things happening. I would pay attention a little bit to economics, to business, and to just what may be happening, because I've talked about the big, the times that are coming with regards to the big drop and just other stuff. Again, not giving financial advice, right, is a disclaimer a lot of people say, but be careful what would happen, because they're going to talk about CBDC and just many things. But yeah, so just be wary of that. Pray about it. Don't just put your money in one place and you think you're fine. Just you gotta think about how to handle your finances. Be a good steward of it. So yeah, I thought about, I hear you on the Discord server. I thought about that, but I'm not sure. I have to really be moved, the Lord moving me before I just like start doing this and that. If you like, even starting Instagram and TikTok was a big endeavor. Like, it was on my mind for a while, and then it got to a point where it's like, okay, Lord, like, I'm so sorry that I delayed it. And then literally in 2 months, like, I like got followers up the wazoo. It's kind of, I mean, it's not about the numbers, obviously, but it just goes to show you like how God was using that, because I was like, whoops, sorry, Lord. And then he was like, I needed this, and it just blew up in the first like 3 months. But okay. So yeah, this is a live if you're watching back this, later on, but I'm just trying to have sort of interact in the chat, but also like give perspectives on things that might be relevant to the topics that I've talked about, as well as what's coming down the line, because we are in a huge awakening state. Like, it's the great awakening that's happening right now, and we have to be ready. So, okay. Let's see. Man, there is a delay between like some of my chats, but because I'm looking at this program and then I'm looking at that program. Okay, but it's aligned. Yeah. So other things. Let me see. I think I'll stop it at that. Yep. Okay. All right. Thank you, guys. Yeah, I'll end the stream now. And I will talk to you guys very soon. Try to do more of this, but just look out for, I have to be a good steward of this. I've been slowing down a little bit, but I need to get back to this. So love you guys. Talk to you guys soon. All right. See you guys.